All right, everybody. Welcome back to the Matty Moolah channel. This is not going to be an extended stream. I just got a new mic set up. I have a little mic tower now to make things a little bit easier, clean up the desk a little bit, and have kind of more of a permanent solution because currently I was kind of like unplugging stuff, plugging stuff back in. So just making a little hub. Got myself a little hub guy over here to be able to add a little bit more into the laptop and just checking the mic quality. So hoping that this sounds appropriate, and I just want to get it a little bit set up so that way I know whether or not it sounds good. So I'm just going to wait for a few people to pop on. Hopefully they can give me some good feedback or to it on my headset on the live stream. It sounds pretty good. So there's no real echo in the room, nothing like that, no reverb. So it sounds pretty great. So let's make things easier to, bring the mic down, bring it back up. Let's see. Yeah, so that's pretty cool. All right. Well, I might as well just stick on here for a little bit. If anybody has any questions that I can kind of walk through, did make a little bit of a purchase today for Rocket Lab, so I could talk through a little bit with that. But other than that, I'm a stud as well. Well, man after my own heart, or maybe you're a woman, I don't know. But regardless, appreciate that. So great. I'm glad that worked out. That was a nice little purchase. It's only like 25, 30 bucks. And this thing's sturdier than what it looked like in the pictures. So hopefully none of these springs unclamp themselves and knock one of my eyes out, though. That's one of the fears that I have when sometimes you buy some of these cheaper things. But it moves pretty fluidly. Fluidly. So anyway, let me just kick back to the live stream, see if there's any questions with respect to this. But other than that, man, I'm just surprised by the market. Palantir went up over 21 bucks. That was crazy. Was not expecting that. It is an $85,000 position of mine. It's getting close to being the first position that I have over $100,000 on an individual stock basis. Of course, I have multiple positions in the S&P 500 in my retirement accounts, as well as individual brokerage accounts that are over $100,000 in the S&P 500. And so, sorry, just working through it. Maybe, I guess that doesn't really matter. As long as it still kind of picks me up a little bit, maybe move it over that way. So as long as it still picks me up. But Palantir 21, man, it's crazy. There's another stock that's trading in the mid 30s right now that I have 2,500 or so shares of, and so that and Shell are probably my largest individual stock positions. And so another one that I had, I had 200 shares of, which was Pepsi. Unfortunately, I'm parting ways with over time as I see an opportunity. The market's run up a little bit. It's got me a little scared. I'm always like, just buy the S&P, right? Sorry, let's do a little housekeeping here. Buy the S&P, and no questions asked. Every time you get paid, buy a little bit of the S&P. But part of me is just like, can't just let go of Pepsi like that. I had a pretty good cost basis on it, but we'll see. I sold 50 shares today, took that and used that to buy some Rocket Lab. Got my share count almost to 5,000 for Rocket Lab. And it goes back to what I was talking about with respect to always kind of having an end plan in mind. And the end plan that I have for Rocket Lab is that I want it to be a six-figure position. And not just a six-figure position, but more of like a $250,000 position when it kind of gets to maturity. And things might change, right? I might take some profits here and there. I don't really foresee it at the moment just because we're still so much in its infancy. And, we haven't even gotten to GAAP profitability or even EBITDA, cash flow sort of break even in that respect. So, still some time to go. But, my thought process was, it's like, if I want this to be a $250,000 position, I only had like 3,000-ish shares or something like that. So in order for that to kind of work out, to get myself to 250,000 at close to 3,000 shares, I needed the stock price to go to $83. And that's a big movement. That's a 20x from where we are today. We're trading about $4.30. And so I was like, 20x, that's pretty tough, right? So what I said to myself is, what if I got it to 5,000? And I honestly thought about getting closer to 10,000 today, but there's still some things I'd like to move out of the way from a risk capital exposure perspective, risk and capital exposure perspective, before I truly dive deep and get maybe another couple hundred or thousand shares of Rocket Lab, which we can touch on if people are curious. But I then went to myself, I was like, well, what if I get it to 5,000 shares? So 250,000 divided by 5,000, that's $50 a share. That's, divide that by the 4.3-ish, it's 11-ish dollars. Sorry. Whoops. $50 a share, divide that by the $4.30 that we have. It's 11x from here. That's a little bit more feasible than a 20x. And so that means you're getting closer to a $20 billion market cap, or maybe a $25 billion market cap. So that seems a little bit more reasonable. Do I think it's going to get there? I think we have a lot of progress to make before I could say it's a $25 billion company, but at least it gets you closer to where I want to be, which is a 10,000 share position. And if you get to a 10,000 share position, you just need the stock to get to $25 for it to be a $250,000 position. So that's kind of how I've kind of back of the envelope got myself into it. So for right now, I could see myself getting, with the position sizing that I have, myself to 100,000, 125,000, with the market cap going to like 10 or 12 billion, which I feel is about where I think we're headed at the moment. Now, some things might happen with respect to Neutron, and that could change. But I think eventually that's, at the time being, where I think we will end up. So let's just see what's going down. We got some people in here. This is a little impromptu. I was really just testing my microphone, and as long as it sounds good, I'll just talk a little bit to you guys. See what you're thinking. Yeah, man. The Moon, Venus, and Mars with Rocket Lab. It's going to be a good time. SoFi did what SoFi does, which I assume he means crumble. And apologies. Let me take this ticker off. I normally update this ticker when Hot Chris and I are chit-chatting, but I haven't updated it as of yet. So let me just turn that off because it's not updated. I don't want to say Rocket Lab's a set it and forget. Maybe for some. I think they have some key trigger points and catalysts over the next year that will really determine whether or not I stay in. I don't foresee myself exiting, but you can never say never, right? There's some things that might happen where it literally just looks like it's going to be a cash burn. And if it's just going to be a cash burn with, the next year or so, and not hit some of the milestones that I want, then I don't know if I want to be a part of something that is struggling along. But I'm very confident, 90 to 95% confident, that they'll be able to get a Neutron rocket on the pad, at least by first half of 2025, and a successful launch. Are they going to be able to land it the first time? Absolutely not. Look at what SpaceX is going through right now with Starship. You have to go through several launches, right? But I think they'll have a very successful launch with Neutron that first time. And even if they don't, I anticipate it'll be quick turnaround for them, a month or two, and then they'll try it again, as long as the whole hull doesn't explode. But I don't foresee them getting up and running, down a path where they're doing like 15 or 20. They explain 50, 20 launches. Within 2025 or 2026. I think they talked they're going to walk before they can run, but maybe they're just being cautious. TSLY, man. I'll leave that one there. Whoever knows, they know. I'm not the biggest fan of those things. I've been burned by covered call ETFs in the past, and I think you just have to recognize what you're in it for. But New house and all, and they're settling. Been making some artwork on that back wall. Great, man. Much appreciated. Yes, I am still moving in. It's been a month. I have some stuff downstairs that I want to move up here. And yes, the suggestion is a giant Palantir logo cut out of fake bricks. I agree, 100%. Those are good ones. I maybe in the time being before I get all my artwork and stuff up, I can. Well, I also am gonna get a whatchamacallit, a better camera setup because right now I used to use my iPhone, and the stand that I had for that broke. Um, and that was pretty good, but I want to get a 1080p 4K streaming camera, and so that way you get a better view as well. Um, and Mine hopefully won't overheat like a Mitz does, you know. And so not only will I have better bricks than a Mitt, but also I'll have a camera that does not overheat. So that's kind of the hope associated with that. But other than that, I'll just hang out for a little bit and curious to see what you guys are thinking. I have a few conversations with some folks yesterday. We had a really good stream. It was me, Vitali, Carlos, Chris, Amit, Jeremy from Financial Education, and really good, almost 3 hour stream. And with that, we talked about Enphase, we talked about PayPal, we talked about Palantir, we talked about SoFi. I'm still waiting for the 30% annualized too, my guy. 100%. Still waiting for it. Yeah, that was a pretty good show. We didn't have a lot of low points. And Chris's entry was pretty cool. It was like an hour and a half in. So if you're bored, just look for Chris's entry because Chris wasn't able to make it for the first hour and a half. And then he showed up and he had a pretty dramatic entrance. But speaking of NVIDIA, somebody mentioned what are my thoughts? Man, I don't really know. They blew out 2Q, but I'm just surprised that the company's over $500 a share right now. Congratulations to them. Congratulations to friend Dom, who's continued to hold and has done a really good job with that. But I'm bullish in the short term on NVIDIA. I think with this whole craze with AI going on, if they continue to show the drastic increase in revenue that they've been able to show in the short term, I think the stock price is going to follow. And so I think what you're going to end up seeing is, unless there's some drastic change in revenue or revenue guidance to the downward, maybe some people cooling off because of interest rates, what have you. But I think that there's still such a craze going on right now that the revenue increases are just going to be up and to the right. And so with that, I think short term, you're going to have to see the same in the stock price. It's a 1.25 trillion market cap. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. It's getting close to some of our other friends. That is absolutely absurd. But with AI going the way it is, I still don't think it's slowing down. I could see it jumping to a 1.5 trillion market cap. I mean, literally, with a company like this, with the frontier in terms of how much revenue they're exploring, they had to find a new normal. Do I think 1.5 trillion is worth it? No, but I would have said it was crazy to buy at 700 billion, and here we are, almost twice that. So, I think that when you're going in the direction of a company like this, you definitely don't want to bet against it, unless you start seeing something or a reason to bet against it. And for right now, there's no reason to bet against it. Maybe that'll change tomorrow. Maybe we'll see a little bit of softening in terms of the revenue growth, but I still think, until you get a full year of this large revenue increases, then I think you have to keep on keeping on. I'm not saying buy the stock here or anything like that, but I'm definitely going to be able to benefit from the percentage that it has in the S&P 500. Let's see. Come check out the new League City. Dutch Bro stays busy. Coffee on you. Absolutely, man. I'm not too far from the League City. You know that. So yeah, hit me up on DM and in Twitter or X or whatever you want to call it. Maybe we can make that happen. I'll be out starting tomorrow to get some turkey with the family. So unfortunately, that might put a pause or shorten some of our shows that we normally do during the week. But I have a friend out there that I have to visit as well. So maybe it can be an introduction to um, another friend as well who you might want to chat with. He has a slightly different perspective, but he just bought a house down in the Berg, Rosenberg. So um, would be cool for me to see. See, it might be the same one that you guys are talking about because he just moved into that spot and it looked like a pretty relatively new location. Lots more retail reporting in the AM. Not exactly sure who else other than Nvidia, but I'm curious to see what that's going to look like. Hot Kev says, "What's your thoughts on Microsoft CEO trying to explain the shit show now known as closed AI?" Hey, I think it was prudent. I think when there's blood in the water and a lot of turmoil, it's a time to make big moves and not to sit, in a chair and let things kind of play out. And I think for those people, that do that, I've heard one of two things, right? I've heard the exact opposite, by the way, of each other. I've heard some people to say it, not making a decision is a decision, and then I've heard others say indecisiveness kills companies, and so or indecisiveness. I don't know, but I've seen people literally not make a decision, keep the ball in the air because they don't want to make the wrong decision, and come back 10 years later and completely flip flop and end up doing the same thing where they would have been, projects would have been developed, they would have been making money. They may not have made the best money, but at the same time, they would have been making money. And, here we are 10 years down the road doing the same project. So I've heard a multitude of different things. Um, I'm a fail fast kind of guy, but I recognize when you're spending billions of dollars, sometimes you can't just go and fail fast, right? So you have to take the capital exposure risk to another heightened level and truly understand and do your due diligence about what the worst outcome might be. Because when you're talking about some stuff that I do, you're talking about shareholder equity, and unfortunately, you can't be as maybe ruthless than if it was personal capital, right? So there's some thoughts on that, but I think Sachi did a phenomenal job, picking up. Sorry, I just got a message. I think Sachi did a great job picking up Sam and Greg, and I think that it's going to end up taking a lot of people from OpenAI. So we'll end up seeing what kind of happens, but I think we basically just put the nail in the coffin, and I wouldn't be surprised as whenever they decide to move to a GPT-5 or a next fundraise or something like that, if the valuation doesn't get cut in half to 40 billion, if not 25 billion. So we'll kind of see what happens with that. Can't you also argue that if NVIDIA went from 100 to 500 because AI hype was somewhat equal on the software side, but bit slower? Not 100% understanding that. I'm probably just not intelligent enough. Are you in any other space stocks besides Rocket Lab? What are your thoughts on Black Sky? Black Sky is something I'm keeping a quick look on. My fear is with Black Skies, I don't know what the revenue trajectory looks like for that. So while they are eking closer to EBITDA break even, or sorry, cash flow break even, I just don't know, right? I mean, they had so many when they did the SPAC, they had so much revenue coming through to the point where they said they'd be at 250 million dollars this year. They're not nearly near there. So in that respect, I mean, I'm just kind of curious what ends up happening and where they end up in a year or two. And I don't think that the difference in price will be all too much. And so it's one that I'm watching quarterly by quarter, just to see if things kind of turn around. But I think that they're getting closer and closer to a place where they can not keep burning cash. But their cash position is not that great either. So it's not like a Rocket Lab, where Rocket Lab, a lot of people are like, oh, Rocket Lab, they're going to have to do another raise of funds. And And they might have to, but I don't think it's because they need to. At least not right now. They might get to a place where they get down to 100 or 200 million in cash once they get the first neutron off, and it's prudent for them to get some cash. But it might be at that point, with what's going on in their company, they might get a loan. They might not necessarily do an equity raise, because they might. I'm very curious to see what ends up happening with cash flow in the first half of 2024, and if not 2024, first half of 24, the second half of 24, and that's all while you're trying to get a new rocket launched, a medium-sized rocket launch. So that's not cheap. So it'll be cool to kind of see what happens with that. Buenas noches, Ryan. What's going on, my guy? Heard you mention Apple was nearing 200 share. Thought it would split soon. Do you really think Apple will split in the next year? I mean, I don't. It doesn't really have that much of an impact on the stock and market cap, other than maybe make it a little bit more affordable and allow people to kind of trade at a premium. But I wouldn't be surprised. They may wait till it gets to 300 a share. But I think that they learned in the last time they split. I think it was closer to $200 to $250 a share, if I remember correctly. Because I think if I remember, they did a 3-for-1. Let me see. Could be completely wrong. Okay, they did a 4-for-1. So they did a 4-for-1. If I remember correctly, it was $70, $60 after the split. Excuse me. Let me see. Splits. They did. Yeah, I mean, the reason why they do it is they think that it makes it a little bit more affordable. So they did it when they were $2.1 trillion market cap. They did a 4-for-1. So I think it was like a 250 to 280 a share, because the one that they did in 2014, they were $700 and they went to $100 a share. So they were at 700 and they went to 100 during that time. So I think it was 280. But I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, I don't see why they wouldn't. It makes it a little bit easier to manage when you're only talking about so many shares. A certain price of shares. So I don't know. I guess it all just really depends. I mean, it doesn't hurt or make the company better, but it does probably make it a little bit more affordable. And I think a lot of times the reason is because people will be like, oh man, Apple's $200 a share, can't buy that. But if it drops to 60 or $70, like, oh shit, it's on sale, right? It's that mentality. It doesn't truly change the market cap of the company, but it gets people a little bit more fired up. Matt, are you holding Palantir generally until 2030? Would you sell if, let's say, the price hits $50 in the next 2 years? What's my exit strategy, basically? Really good question. I mean, I think that if it jumped to, I'll just be blunt with you guys. I mean, I think you guys know my position sizing. It's not nearly as big as some people might think. It's 4,000 shares. That's a lot to some of you. To some of you guys might have more Palantir. $43 billion market cap. If it went to $50 in the next 2 years, if you think about it in this perspective, that would be $100 billion market cap. And, would I sell all of it? Probably not, but I would likely take a little bit of money off the table or be writing covered calls. I think it all just depends on the time, there's underlying plans for me, which I'm getting closer and closer to when you have rallies like this, of taking a position of the portfolio. Not a position, a portion of the portfolio. And this isn't necessarily Palantir, but it could get wrapped up in this, and get a little bit more aggressive on the real estate side of things in like a development side, um, where I have an underlying portfolio of stocks that can get me to retirement, and then you have a little bit of opportunity in the real estate side to build a few houses, sell a few, keep a few. If you build some in the right places, put them on Airbnb or rent them long term, or that flexibility piece. And I think that there's something to be said about that. There's tax advantages of doing some of that. There's just a lot of things that I would like to explore. And the more I grow into the stock market, the more I want to, how do I put this? The more money I get, the more I recognize that you need to throw money at things for wealth to truly be generated. And so originally, when I first had no money, basically, I was like scavenging for every penny. And sometimes when you penny pinch, you choke yourself. And so, anyway, there might be an underlying in the next 2 to 3 years change in the portfolio size overall. But Palantir, if it went to $50 tomorrow, I'd likely sell a large portion of it. I truly have a fundamental belief that this is a once in a generation type of company. But at the end of the day, they're not growing like that. And I'm a patient man, but this past 3 years of owning Palantir has really tested my patience and convictions because I've never sold a share. And I've seen a lot of people join, and a lot of people think that it's going to a $300 billion market cap tomorrow. And I just don't see that. I think it's going to be a slower grind than we really truly think. And with that, if it got to a $50 billion market cap, I'd either sell some outrageous, sorry, not 50 billion market cap, $50 share price. I'd sell some outrageous close to the money covered calls like I did in 2021 when it went haywire and went up to the 40s. I made a lot of money doing that. So if that opportunity presents itself, maybe instead of selling, I'll just do that. But I do also think that, something drastic would have to change for it to get to a $100 billion market cap or $50 share price in the next 2 years. And if that happens and it reveals itself, then, the fundamentals of my belief of selling at a $50 price tag might change. But I truly believe that it's going to take 10 years for this thing to reach 120 to $200 billion market cap. But I could be wrong on that. And if that's the case, then I am. But if my thought process is now base case 120 to 200 billion and it gets to 100 billion, 120 billion dollar market cap in the next 2 years, I would be stupid to not take a little bit of money off the table, right? And at that point, it would be I would say a $12 cost basis. It would be close to a 4.5x for me. So I would be stupid not to take money off the table, unless I was getting some sort of cover call income or something like that. Would I keep a portion of it? Probably. Maybe my original 10,000 shares. Sorry, not 10,000, 1,000 shares. Because if it does go to a trillion, that would be pretty cool. Trillion market cap, right? And let's just take some quick math. If it does, let's just say they're able to keep the share count at 2.5 billion and it goes to a trillion, it'll be $400 a share. And so even that 1,000 shares would still be worth 400 grand. So I could easily see myself selling half my shares if it gets to 100 to $200 billion market cap, and keeping the rest, because at that point, it's free money. And I truly believe that this company is once in a generation. But if it just ends up being that the competition comes, like with what's going on with Microsoft right now and OpenAI, and they start coming for Palantir's blood, then I could see an opportunity where it does kind of only stay at 100 to $200 billion market cap. And for now, I think that that's what my base case is, with an upside opportunity of it being a trillion plus. So I know it's not a direct answer, but I'll be transparent with everybody when that time comes. Like right now, I think $43 billion is overpriced in terms of a market cap, but it could just be one of those things where it trades like Tesla traded, and eventually it grows into um, that that valuation. Johnny, what's going on? D. Edwards, thank you. The move is going well. Um, Still have some stuff in the garage that I need to eventually move in, but I do need to start hanging some stuff on the wall. I got some cool artwork that I never hung up at the old apartment because I just knew I was always going to move. And now that I have kind of this guest room office sort of thing set up, I will probably do that. And I don't know, there's like a 20% chance that I might move my office into my bedroom, but I like kind of being able to have separate office and living areas. So sleeping areas, I mean. So we'll see. You have a seller, $50 a share to sell it all. Palantir. I don't think that's a bad move, man. Let's just say $50 a share, right? Let's say by the time that happens, it's going to be 2.5 billion shares likely. It's a $125 billion market cap. It's a pretty big company. There's not many companies over 100 billion in the world, right? I think we get skewed because we talk about some of these big companies out there. $125 billion company is huge. It's very big. It's a lot of money. 100 billion in 2 years is very optimistic. I agree. Just like $43 billion today is optimistic. ULA Vulcan Centaur is readying to launch. A new Rocket Lab competitor is coming up. Still bullish on Beck, though. I agree. ULA does a great job. Tony does a good job. Or is it Tori? Damn it. I like... Dang it. Tori Bruno. That's right. I don't know why I keep calling him Tony. Tori Bruno does a great job. June, hope you're doing good. Thank you for stopping by. Slow and steady is the best. I agree. Appreciate your thoughts. I appreciate you for showing up. Yes, Microsoft hired Sam Altman. I'm curious to see what happens with that. Scared money makes no money. I agree. I just know a lot of people that have done well when it comes to construction. And it is something, if you don't overextend yourself, you can do really, really well. If you overextend yourself, just like in the stock market, right? You over leverage, you're going to get burnt alive. But if you have a fundamental base that can keep you afloat, like a dividend portfolio or a stock portfolio, you can get through the hard times, right? And if you're only doing a couple houses a year or something like that, a couple $100,000, if I lose a couple $100,000, this is going to sound like an asshole-ish thing to say. It's not going to be the end of the world. And so the thought process is I could sit on $100,000, a couple $100,000 while it waits to sell, if that's the case. But the margins, I think, on some of these builds are good enough where it's something you have to try it. Do you like the idea of investing in Tesla currently? No, but that has burned me in the past. Not in terms of what was I going to say? Not in terms of losing physical money, but in terms of opportunity cost. I've lost money by not investing in Tesla. There's a whole rabbit hole of things that I could say, about how I almost bought it and, yada, yada, yada. But I just, at the moment, I can't foresee, like they asked me yesterday, Tanner specifically, if I thought Optimus, like the robots and stuff, are priced in. And yeah, like they have to be somewhat priced in, right? Not fully, right? Obviously, if that iRobot of the world comes out of Tesla and they end up building these Optimus robots, like they're giving some credit to it because if you were to value the car business and car business alone, it might be worth 200 to 250 billion. And so where's the other 500, $600 billion in valuation? You could say robo taxis. Like, okay, so Uber's a 50 to $100 billion company. So that makes it a 250 to $350 billion company for Tesla. Where's the other $350 billion coming from? Oh, their energy company is huge. Well, their energy company makes a fraction of what any other utility company in the United States makes. So that's for some reason worth $100 billion. And then, so that wonders where the extra 250 to $300 billion come from. And it gets me back to like, I've obviously lost money by not investing in terms of opportunity cost, by not investing in Tesla. But that's just me. I just couldn't understand the valuation, and other people have done well with it. So it is what it is. Did I ever get any Celsius? I did not buy any Celsius stock. There's a few companies I'm playing around with potentially buying into, but Celsius to me, dang, Celsius turned around 8% today. Dang. Celsius to me was one that I was looking at, but then part of me is also like, well, Dutch Bros could continue to do well. So I'm like sitting there, I'm like, do I really need to move into more positions? And to me, I'd rather have fewer positions at a larger scale than kind of spread myself too thin. Doesn't mean I'm not going to dabble in things, right? But I'm not going to try to have, let's just say I might have $1,000 position or $2,000 position, which to me doesn't mean anything, like I have for SoFi. And that, if it goes up, it goes up. But I just don't have enough conviction right now to have money in a SoFi. I think they're doing well. They're well valued right now. But I just think that the sentiment on the company needs to change a little bit. That said, I still have some spreads for 2026, but it's not a very large position. Any Chronicles? So Stephen Fiorillo reached out to me. He wants to talk about Energy Transfer. He wrote a new article today. We might do that. I'm going to see if Hot Chris wants to hop on. It might just be me and Steven. So we'll see if Hot Chris wants to join in. If Hot Chris is here, it'll be labeled as a Cashflow Chronicles. If Hot Chris does not show up, it might just be hanging out with Matty Moolah and Steven on a Monday night. Typically we don't do a show on Mondays because, Chris obviously has other obligations with the Finance Junkies, and we're just trying not to burn ourselves out doing one every single night, 5 days a week, until the audience is there, right? If the audience shows up and we're consistently showing up 150 people every single night, it might be something where we do it Sunday through Thursday or Sunday through Friday or something like that. But I just try to keep in mind Chris is on a different working schedule than a lot of us. He works nights most of the time. So we wake him up early to be able to do Cashflow Chronicles. We wake him up early in order to do Finance Junkies. So I just try to make sure that we get his full time, and it's well worth it. You're in construction, you can make tons of money. Yes. And if you over lever yourself and you have markets like there are today with the recession, like not a recession, a pullback in, say, the amount of people buying homes, higher interest rates, yada, 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 can be very detrimental, especially if you have a lot of loans and you're having houses sit out there not being bought up, right? But if you're only doing one or two houses, it's a lot more manageable, right? And you can kind of build a nest egg and kind of go from there. And that's kind of the hope, was to kind of build another avenue. Do you have any Celsius? I don't at the moment. Planet Labs. Nothing wrong with Planet Labs. I would rather own a Rocket Lab. I think that Rocket Lab is more of a independent sort of company, an end-to-end space company, than Planet Labs. I think Planet Labs is a niche, but I don't want to speak too much in detail about it, because honestly, I don't know as much about Planet Labs other than they've done some contracting through Rocket Lab to put some satellites into space. So to me, I'd rather own a company that can go end-to-end space, and that's Rocket Lab at the moment. I own some spreads some bullish spreads. I think the 10 and 15s. So the $10 long calls, the 15 short calls. So Mike sounds great. Hope you're getting some nice artwork for the wall. That's the hope. I have some artwork downstairs, some of the stuff that I had at the old apartment, plus some other stuff that I never hung up. How did the new monster taste? Because the old one tastes like rotten ass. It's a good question. Had a rep walk into your ramen shop yesterday with the new version of, or monster version of Celsius. Oh, interesting. Curious to see how that. So is Rocket Lab your most bullish spec stock holding? I would say right now, in terms of multiples in which I think I can get, and individual stock positions, I would say yes. Because Palantir, I think I could foresee in an extremely bullish case, right? So not the base case, the extremely bullish case. I could see Palantir getting to $1 trillion plus valuation, right? For Rocket Lab, I could see it getting to $100 billion plus valuation in the long term on the most positive side. That being said, that would be a 40 to 50x for Rocket Lab here. It would be about a 20x for Palantir, maybe a little bit less. No, about a 20, 25x for Palantir. So, and the only reason why I'm valuing Rocket Lab potentially up to 100 billion is because SpaceX hasn't gotten really that much past that. If SpaceX starts valuing itself at 200 billion or something like that, then might be a little bit different and more potential for that. But I would say for right now, I think the base case I'm seeing, it's tough to say base case. There's still a lot of risk associated with Rocket Lab from a capital exposure. They're not making cash at the moment. They're only burning it. So it's hard to say that I could foresee it being a $10 to $12 billion company in the next 10 years, but I think that is probably okay to say. It could crash and burn and go to zero, of course, but I think that they have a lot of potential compared to a lot of the other companies that are publicly traded from a space perspective right now. Palantir is already $43 billion. It's tough. And I think the base case right now is 120 to $200 billion. So that kind of being said, I mean, that's a 3x to 5x from here. So I think it's a little bit easier right now with Palantir is. If you're asking me what's more guaranteed, I would say Palantir is more guaranteed than a Rocket Lab. But I think that the risk reward of Rocket Lab at the moment could be much higher. And not much higher. I think, how do I say this appropriately? For the amount of risk you're taking on with Rocket Lab, I think you're still going to be at a deficit from a risk reward perspective compared to Palantir, because Palantir, I think, is more certain to get to 120 to $200 billion market cap. But it's closing. The gap is closing from a risk, capital exposure, and risk perspective. Especially with now Palantir getting closer to a $50 billion market cap. The future returns, right, at $21, $22 makes it a little bit more difficult to stomach only a 2x to 3x return versus a Rocket Lab, kind of more of like a 5 to 6x sort of return. And the risk is getting to a place where the cash flow is there if they weren't spending on Neutron, or they cash flow break even, that sort of thing. And I think 1Q for Rocket Lab will be very telling. Have you looked at VCLT long? Nope. I have not. I have TLT. We have TLT in the public portfolio. That's done really well. Steve would be someone that would be interested in Rocket Lab. We'll see. I'll ask him. I don't know if he's done much. He's more of a cash flow guy, but I asked Steve to look into Orsted and see what he thinks. So, Monster Light tasted the same pretty much. Made me sell my Celsius, honestly, after the 8% move. Competition's going to be fierce. Interesting. How are Steve's Pokemon investments doing? We'll have to see. Cashflow Chronicles is your favorite finance go-to. Continue the great work. I appreciate that, man. Me and Chris have a very long horizon, and we want to do some more things. That's why I got the new mic set up. I want to get the new camera set up as well. It should be good, and I want to get more systematic about it, especially if we get more people to show up. I think I'll put more rigor into it to plan and get more guests on, people that are in the finance space, because I just love hearing about people's different perspectives. It's great to listen to the banter, and I do want to finish up. Is Finance Junkies now officially back at 8 p.m. Let's see. I don't want to steal from those guys. I don't want to compete. I respect those guys, and so I want to make sure I don't compete against those guys. Okay, I think they've officially moved to 8 p.m. Central, so I think we're good. But yeah, I want to bring more people on. I want to bring on guests like yourselves that have a story, that have a portfolio, like Captain Dave taking Celsius over Monster. I'd love to have you on, right? And we've done a little bit of that, but more from a content creator perspective. But I think, Chris, the longer this goes on, we talk more and more about it, and I think there's a lot more opportunity to kind of be had. So you drop a kid off at school with cash flow. You guys are killing it. Hopefully my son is actually listening. Hopefully. A lot of that stuff rubs off. Let's fucking go. When is Rocket Lab's earnings? They had it on November 8th. SLG to the moon. Cranberry City is not bullish on it and Mad Money. It'll go to $50 tomorrow morning. No, very excited about that one. I have 200 shares, 300 shares. Do I have 300 shares? Has to be, because it's close to like 10 or 11 grand. Yeah, Rocket Lab was there a week or so ago. Sign up for the quarterly alerts. When am I streaming tonight? I'm gonna see if Hot Chris wants to do Cashflow Chronicles. If he does, then it'll probably be 10 p.m. Eastern, 9 p.m. Central Time. But yeah, if you guys are interested, if you guys do like Rocket Lab, or you heard me talk about it and you're curious, I would say, there is risk associated with it, right? I might be talking about these big X's, right? But there's always the possibility it goes to zero, as always. And if you guys are curious, I just posted a video the other day about Rocket Lab earnings. It's like 20, 30 minutes. And you can kind of get my whole spiel about what it is. And we also do a weekly podcast with Vince's Bullish on his channel. So hopefully that continues to do well. But I will hopefully see you guys in a couple hours, 2 to 3 hours, if Chris is down to do Cashflow Chronicles. If he's not, I'll still probably be on with Steven. It just might be a 20, 30-minute quick guy to talk about energy transfer. And then I also want a Pokemon if he did any Orsted. But appreciate on an impromptu having a peak of over 50 people show up, especially when the mic, it's named like new mic testing or something like that. Wasn't expecting to have 50 people or go on for 48, 49 minutes. So much appreciated. And hopefully you guys have a good evening. And I'll talk to you guys in an hour or two. Cheers.